I want people to stand up and recognize him. Welcome to the show where I talk about the artists that I have loved all my life, the ones that have been the biggest influence in my life, the ones who have helped influence my other choices in music. Welcome to Influencers. I'm TC Kirkham, the Kirkham Report. I've been talking about doing an Influencers on this gentleman for quite a while, and it's going to be a little bit odd because I've never done one of these shows where it's split into two distinct eras. One where he was the leader of a band and the other where he was a solo performer. But you can't cover him adequately without doing both, and that's what I've been doing. I've gotten somewhat militant, excuse my hair, about this gentleman because I just think he is one of the most underappreciated people in the entire music world. I never see vinyl community members talk about him. I never see anybody talk about him, and I can't figure out why, because I think he's just a brilliant musician, a brilliant songwriter, and someone who is truly, I mean, you've heard his songs. When he was not active as a performer, he was active as a songwriter. He's written songs for dozens of artists. During his heyday, several of his hits became big hits for a couple of teen idols. I'm like, what in the hell is wrong with the music community in America and around the world when they can't find the true musical soul that is Eric Carmen? This is Carmen's debut album with Raspberries. It came out in 1972. That's Carmen with his hands on his hips there with the big belt buckle. Eric, originally from Cleveland, would lead the Raspberries through 4 albums, and he also did 4 magnificent solo albums that we'll talk about. I was 9 when this came out. This is Raspberries. It's their first album. This is the one that had the scratch and sniff sticker on the cover. And you can still smell it 50 years later. I got this new in a cutout bin in 1985 for 10 cents. I'd almost spent $40 on it a year or two before. Because I had become a huge fan and was going back and getting all of his old ones. All 3 of the 4 Raspberries albums I have, I picked up in that same cutout bin. They were all 10 cents each. And it's been terrific. Or 2 of them. No, the third one I think I got from Adam, Record Crate. This album, their debut album, featured their monster hit, Go All the Way. That was the only huge hit they had over their career, although they would have a few other singles that did well. It also features Come Around and See Me, I Saw the Light, Rock and Roll Mama, Waiting, Don't Want to Say Goodbye, With You in My Life, Get It Moving, I Can Remember. Carmen did not do all the writing for the Raspberries. Wally Bryson, who is the gentleman right behind him, right here, also did quite a bit of the writing. And David Smalley, is that right? Did some of it also. But it is easy to see that he was going to be a big force in music eventually. This album, as I said, it is an OG from 1972, although it was in the cutout bin. It's got that mid-70s red Capitol label. It's an amazing album. And because I got this as an adult, it's still in top-notch shape. a fantastic vocalist he is. And this was just scratching the surface of what he would do in later years. Um, the Raspberries never really caught on the way they should have with pop radio. Now, they did have Go All the Way was a top 10 hit. They had a couple of other minor hits that were in the top 40. But again, they did do well on album rock radio, but album rock radio at the time did not have their own chart. That didn't come along until 1981, years after they broke up. And there have been a couple of compilation albums in the later years and a live album that was recorded several years back that came out in 2008, I think. Excuse me. Trying to stifle a yawn. But Eric Carmen's voice, there's something about his voice and his songwriting style too, that is just, well, literally music to my ears. And I mean that both literally and figuratively, because I consider him a musical genius, and I've talked about him on Vinyl Recall and other shows recently. The man can do no wrong by me. This is the second album from the Raspberries. It came out in 1973. It was called Fresh Raspberries. I just picked this up a couple of years ago. I never got around to getting it. This was released in 1973. There's Eric in the front right here. This featured another top 40 single, I Want to Be With You, along with Going Nowhere Tonight, Let's Pretend, Anyway, Every Way I Can, I Reach for the Light, Nobody Knows, It Seems So Easy, Might As Well, If You Change Your Mind, and Driving Around. The songs, again, were split between Eric, who wrote the big single, and David Smalley and Wally Bryson. And this is, I think, my least favorite of the three I have. I like this. It's a good album, but it's not as good as the first and the fourth one. And the third one, side 3, I do not have. It's on my want list on Discogs. I will pick it up eventually. This was a good album and featured some good, strong music by them. But it wasn't perfect. The third album, as I said, I do not have. It's called Side 3. It actually comes in a die-cut basket of raspberries shape. I don't know what it was with the 70s and the damn die-cut stuff. It was just kind of ridiculous. But, I mean, I definitely want it. This one is the last one they did together, 1974's Starting Over. They had made a couple of replacements in the music in the band. And at this point, David Smalley and Jim Buffonti had stepped away, and Scott McCarl and Michael McBride joined Wally and Eric. Starting Over, the album cover isn't great. Same picture on both sides, both sides of the album. Overnight Sensation hit record. Play On. Party's Over, I Don't Know What I Want, Rose-Colored Glasses, All Through the Night, Cruisin' Music, I Can Hardly Believe You're Mine, Cry, Hands on You, and Starting Over. This has got my favorite song by them, Overnight Sensation, hit record, which is truly the story of making it in the music industry. And it is a brilliant piece that Eric wrote, and I'm surprised nobody else had a hit with it. It was a minor hit for them. I think it peaked in the 20s somewhere. It was their last top 40 hit. And I mean, gotta dig those mutton chops on Eric on that picture. It's ridiculous. The Raspberries as a whole are well thought of by most people. And I'd like to think that his solo stuff deserved as much praise. The problem is when he went solo, he went more... he didn't stay with the rock vein. He was more of a rock-ish version of Barry Manilow in some places. But it didn't stop him from having big hits, and it's because, number one, he is one of the best vocalists ever when it comes to any kind of music. I love Eric Carmen's voice, and I will listen to him anytime. Let's put the Raspberries aside and focus on Carmen's solo career. because these are the albums I really truly adore, and they're just fantastic. The first album came out in November of 1975, produced two massive hits for himself and another for Sean Cassidy. This is the self-titled album, Eric Carmen. This is a RCA Records release. You can tell from that R number down there at the bottom. RCA Record Club. This features All By Myself, Sunrise, That's Rock and Roll, Never Gonna Fall in Love Again, Last Night, My Girl, Great Expectations, Everything, No Hard Feelings, and On Broadway. This is the perfect example of what I'm talking about. If you listen to oldies radio, pop radio, you may hear All By Myself occasionally, and you may, on the outside chance, especially if it leans AC, hear Never Gonna Fall in Love Again. These are the only two songs by Eric Carmen you ever hear on the radio anymore. That's disgusting. It really is. This is the only album by him I've paid full price for. Because his albums, his singles would be hits, but his albums didn't move after this one. This was a gold album. It might have even gone platinum, I'm not sure. And it deserved to be. This album is brilliant from beginning to end. It was number 3 or 4 on my 1975 list on Vinyl Recall. All By Myself has been a hit again in the late 90s or early 2000s by Celine Dion. That's Rock and Roll, the original version of which is on this album and which is superior, was a big hit for Sean Cassidy that year, 1977. It was a good song. Sean knew good stuff when he heard it. He recorded 3 or 4 of Eric Carmen's songs over the years, 2 of which were hits. And it isn't fair that he doesn't get credit for that. Because the original version of That's Rock and Roll off this album is way better. I mean, I like Sean Cassidy's version. It's not bad, but this one, it knocks everything out of the ballpark. And it's a song that the Raspberries could have easily recorded without any problem. I love Eric's take on Broadway here also. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I don't know why I'm yawning. It's not terribly different from the George Benson version, but Eric did it first. George. It's a more rock version of a song that was a hit in the 60s. Terrific, terrific version. And Sunrise is also known to Eric's fans. I think it was the flip side of All By Myself. And it did get some airplay. Album is fantastic. It has the original inner sleeve with lyrics. Dedicated to Ricky and the Tooth. I don't know who that is. And, of course, on that wonderful mid-70s Arista label. This was a hit, and I was so happy that this was a hit. It's sad to think this is the only hit he had, the only hit album. Because the second album, as I said on Vinyl Recall for 1977, it's not only my favorite album, it's his best album. I love this. The critics didn't like it. The critics are freaking wrong. Critics become critics because they can't make music, so they have to criticize it. Isn't that what they always say? 1977's Boats Against the Current is my favorite album by Eric Carmen. This is a genius album. Not only does it feature the title track, which is the best song of his entire career, also features Marathon Man, Nowhere to Hide, Take It or Leave It, Love Is All That Matters, She Did It, I Think I Found Myself, and Runaway. I got this in the cutout bin 6 months after it came out. I didn't have the money to buy albums a lot at the time, so I bought the singles. But when I found them in cutout bins for $2 or $3, I would grab them, and this is one of those. No excuse for that. No excuse for that. This album is genius. No excuse for that. Not only is the title track fantastic, every song on here is good. Boats Against the Current peaked in the 80s on the Hot 100 when it was released as a single. which is inexplicable to me. Now, I remember, and I said this on Vinyl Recall, I remember a piano-only version of Boats Against the Current that I think is on this album. I have not listened to this recently, and I didn't listen to it on here. I listened to it on Spotify, and I was surprised to find Spotify has the orchestral version of Boats Against the Current as part of the album. I don't think it was, and I'm going to find out for sure. But I remember a piano-only version of that song that is just exquisite. I love the orchestral version, too. Nowhere to Hide, which was not released as a single, one of his best songs, one of his best vocals. It's an incredible, wonderful song. She Did It, which was the single from this album and hit the top 40 briefly, was a hit for Michael Damian in 1981. It didn't do as well. It peaked in the 80s, I think. His version was very poppy. Eric's has more pizzazz to it, and I will always love Eric Carmen's version of that song better. If there's only one Eric Carmen album that you would get besides the first one, this is the one to do. It is excellent. Screw the critics. The third album came out in 1978, and I have mixed feelings about it because I like the music, but there's actually a couple of songs I'm not that fond of. And I mean, everybody has their off days. And Eric did too. 1978 brought Change of Heart. That cover there. Desperate Fool's Overture, Haven't We Come a Long Way, End of the World, Heaven Can Wait, Baby I Need Your Lovin', Change of Heart, Hey Deanie, Someday, and Desperate Fools. Change of Heart, Heaven Can Wait, Baby I Need Your Lovin' were all singles off this album. Change of Heart was the biggest of them. His cover of Baby I Need Your Lovin' was fabulous. I'm not really fond of Desperate Fools. The lyrics are great. It's just that I'm not really... It's one of those songs that I kind of like, but I have to be in the right mood. Again, this came from the cutout bin. There's the sleeve with the information. Again, on that Arista label from the 70s, the black one this time. Again, I got it in the cutout bin for $1.99 or less. I had the singles off of it by that point. This is one time also when I will buck the trend. I like Sean Cassidy's version of Hey Deanie better. This is a little slow. It's not a ballad by any stretch of the imagination, but Sean's has a little bit more pizzazz, a little bit more life to it. Sean knew good music when he heard it, and he and Mike Curb were able to pull some really good stuff from the Carmen catalog and from other people's catalogs and get him hits, and Hey Deanie was one of them, and so was That's Rock and Roll. I think that Change of Heart is a great song, and I personally would have went the other direction when releasing singles. I would have released Baby I Need Your Lovin' first before Change of Heart. But as a result, Baby I Need Your Lovin' did not make the top 40. Change of Heart did. It's a good album. I mean, it's Eric Carmen. There is no bad albums. But the first two, they're going to be hard to top for me because they're just marvelous. And this one, slightly underdone, but still excellent. 1980, his fourth and final album for Arista Records, which I finally tracked down about it. I don't know. I got it from Eric at Record Crate, I think. Adam at Record Crate. This album had no hits on it on the album chart, on the pop chart, but it deserves better than it gets because it is actually. I actually like it better than I like Change of Heart. This is It Hurts Too Much. That album cover, Tonight You're Mine, I'm sorry. The album cover is a bit much there, but that's a great shot of Eric, 1980. Eric there. All for Love, Lost in the Shuffle, Sleep With Me, Tonight You're Mine, The Inside Story, You Need Some Lovin', Foolin' Myself, and It Hurts Too Much, which was the main single off the album. Tonight You're Mine also was released as a single. Neither single hit the chart in a big way. I think they both hit the bottom half of the Hot 100. This is on the cool 80s Arista logo label. I like this album. Oh my god. I'm so sorry. I try not to do that during my shows. I like this album a lot. I like it slightly better than Change of Heart, but it still doesn't measure up to the first two. There's a lot of great stuff on here. He took some chances with this album. And he and Arista would part ways for a number of years after this, which is a shame. And I always felt that Clive did not give him the promotion he deserved, particularly with Boats Against the Current. They pushed the first album out the wazoo, and then nothing happened. He would take 5 years off after Tonight You're Mine, and it actually worked for the better. He wrote a couple of songs for other people that did pretty well on their albums and such. When he did resurface, he signed with Geffen Records and released his second self-titled album. This is 1985's Eric Carmen. That shot was declared as one of the best rock and roll cover shots of all time. There's the back cover. But again, this album stiffed, and I don't understand why. It's one of his best albums. I Want to Hear It From Your Lips, I'm Through With Love, American is Apple Pie, Living Without Your Love, Come Back to My Love, She Remembered, You Took Me All the Way, Maybe My Baby, Spotlight, and The Way We Used to Be. This was worth waiting 5 years for. It is a stupendously good album, very close to the other self-titled album, not as good as Boats Against the Current, but that's just me. There is some. I Want to Hear It From Your Lips, the one big single from the album, peaked at number 40 on the Hot 100, which made no sense to me. I'm Through With Love, also released as a single. I think You Took Me All the Way was released as a single also. 1985 was the wrong timing for him. It didn't work as well. People were like, who's Eric Carmen by that point? I knew. I was working for a record store called Buzzard's Nest in Lancaster, Ohio at the time, and everybody there were fans, and we all bought the album, and it is a great album. And that cover shot is brilliant. I'm sorry. Those are his 4 solo albums. There's a 5th one that was released in Japan that finally came out available to Americans in the early 2000s, which I have not tracked down yet. I'm going to. In 1987, he recorded a song for a little movie that nobody knew what was going to happen with it. He had written the song and wrote a couple other songs for the movie as well, or was involved with them. And because of the movie's strength at the box office, the soundtrack took off, and Eric had his first solo top 10 hit since 1975 with Hungry Eyes from the movie Dirty Dancing. That was incredibly gratifying to me. Hungry Eyes is a great song. He has better songs, but it is a great song. And it did trigger Arista to re-sign Eric to do some new music for a Courageous Hits collection called The Best of Eric Carmen, which came out in 1988. This featured Hungry Eyes, also featured the album tracks All By Myself, Never Gonna Fall in Love, Hey That's Rock and Roll, Hey Deanie, Make Me Lose Control, She Did It, Change of Heart, It Hurts Too Much, No Hard Feelings, and Boats Against the Current. I'm just reading. Maybe this is where the solo piano version is. This album also produced a second top 10 smash and number 4 hit called Make Me Lose Control, which is one of the best songs of his career. It is truly a masterpiece. This album focuses on all of the really good stuff on from his career. Um, I do wish I do wish it had included "Nowhere to Hide." It doesn't, which is my favorite song from Boats Against the Current. One of my favorite songs from Boats Against the Current. But it does feature all of his hits. It features "Hungry Eyes," and which is technically a Geffen release, by the way, and "Make Me Lose Control," which came out on Arista. Um, this is a great overview of his career. He has two other albums similar, the definitive Eric Carmen, and there's one other one. I haven't picked those up because I have all the singles, and I have all the songs on the albums. I picked this up because it made it easy to play all of his hits, and it also had "Make Me Lose Control" and "Hungry Eyes" on it, which was nice. Um, After this, he actively stopped performing again. I mean, he still performs, but he doesn't. He hasn't recorded anything except the album that came out in Japan. He is more active as a songwriter and a producer. Um, why isn't he bigger? I don't know. Um, from the very moment I first heard "Go All the Way," I was head over heels in love with Eric Carmen's voice. And two of his albums, his debut solo album and Boats Against the Current, have placed in my top 10 of the year on Vinyl Recall on the years they were available. Change of Heart probably will not. It Hurts Too Much probably will not. Or Tonight You're Mine probably will not. The other one, 1985's Eric Carmen, probably will. We'll see. I haven't gotten that far yet. But those albums, I mean, he deserves better than he got. Very few people talk about Eric, and they should talk about him more. He writes brilliant songs. They can be straight out heartbreak ballads like "All by Myself," "Never Gonna Fall in Love Again." Um, they can be rockers like "Houdini" or "That's Rock and Roll," or "She Did It" to some extent. They can be these wonderful story songs like "Make Me Lose Control," which was just one of my favorite songs by him. I can't get enough of his music. I listen to it all the time. I have everything on digital, pretty much. And you can get all of it on the most streaming services as well. Um, I want people to stand up and recognize him because he deserves better than he gets. I want the vinyl community to start talking about him because he deserves better than he gets. I don't understand why he is not as revered as some of his peers of the day. And to me, it just isn't fair. The man is a genius. I would put him up there among all of the geniuses I consider, all of the people I consider musical geniuses. That would be, just off the top of my head, in that list I would include, besides Eric Carmen, I would include Richard Carpenter. I would include Daddy Freyer. I would include probably Toby McKeegan of DC Talk. A number of other people. Eric is right up there with them, and he deserves better than he gets. So, VC, this is my challenge to you. Go find an Eric Carmen solo album, put it on, listen to it, and let me know what you think of it. Because I don't understand why people don't recognize him at least as a superior songwriter, if not an artist. I mean, they're wrong. They are definitely wrong. And as I said on Vinyl Recall, what on earth is wrong with you people? The man is brilliant. This album alone proves it, but everything he's done, particularly this one, deserves so much better than it gets. I will always be a die-hard Eric Carmen fan. I think he's a brilliant songwriter. I think he's way undervalued in the music industry by fans. I think people in the industry know that he's definitely a top-notch writer and producer. He has served the music community for over 50 years now, since his first band happened in 1967, I think it was. He is just incredible as a musician, and I want to see him get the honest coverage and the honest respect the man deserves. Eric, dude, you are one of the best and one of the greats in my book. I don't know what that means. Probably nothing in the long scheme of things, but I know you mean a lot to me. Thank you for your music. If you've subscribed to my channel, thank you. If you haven't, please do. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to share this and leave a comment. I definitely want to hear what you have to say. Tell me, why don't people give Eric Carmen his due? Or tell me why you don't like him. I'll be surprised if there's anybody that can actually say that. I have a host of other shows on. They're on every day except Monday at 4 p.m. usually. They include Influencers, this show, Vinyl Recall on Wednesday, Rank This on Thursday, Label Nova on Fridays, alternating with another show coming in April or May, the Kirkham Report on Saturdays, and the Radio Retro Countdown on Sundays. Also, Two Hip Chicks, Dawn and I do Finding Your Music Mojo every other Monday, live at 6 p.m. We just had our most recent edition yesterday. And, of course, TC's Obscuria Vaults Monday through Friday at 11 a.m., and I hope you check them out. For Influencers, I'm TC Kirkham, the Kirkham Report. Thank you for watching. There'll be more coming where this one left off. Until then, ciao, baby.